50 useless things about the ocean. Historically, people spoke of 7 oceans in order to preserve the ancient notion of the 7 seas. Truthfully, any division of the ocean is actually not real, since all the oceans melt into just one. There's just one global ocean. Thalassophobia is the name for intense fear of the sea or the fear of deep dark water. Many sea plants and animals are bioluminescent, which means they produce light chemically within their bodies, either to hunt or to see. An average liter of seawater contains 38,000 different species of microbial life. The high seas have their fair share of crime and violence. Piracy goes back to the ancient world, but the Caribbean pirates of the 16th and 17th centuries are perhaps the most iconic. They didn't hesitate to send their foes to Davy Jones' locker, a name that's an euphemism which means death the seafloor. Modern oceanography is considered to have begun in 1872 when HMS Challenger made the grand tour of the world's ocean on a 3.5-year voyage. Distances on the ocean are measured in nautical miles, which are longer than regular miles. 1 nautical mile means 1.15 regular miles or 1.85 kilometers. On average, the water in the ocean is 3.5% salt. There's a lot more than just water in the ocean. Each cubic mile of seawater contains approximately 165 million tons of dissolved solid material, from plant and animal life to geologic materials. Marine biologists have so far discovered 17,000 species thriving in the ocean depth, living entirely without sunlight, receiving energy from underwater thermal vents, volcanoes, or geological activity. Despite the incredible amount of research done on the coastal seas, it's still unknown how many species live in these shallow waters. Estimates vary from 178,000 species to 10 million species. Explorers of the sea and its mysteries are sometimes called oceanauts. Fish and other seafood make up some of the healthiest protein sources on the planet. Approximately 15% of the high-quality protein humans eat comes from the ocean. This number is far higher in many parts of Asia, where fish and other seafood make up a larger part of people's diet. Earth's ocean contain roughly 300 million cubic miles of water. If all the salt were to be removed from world oceans and poured into the continents of Earth, it will cover them to a depth of 500 feet. The oceans cover 70% of Earth's surface, and 97% of all the water in all the world is in oceans. The oceans are nearly as old as the Earth itself. Scientists believe that the ocean contained at least some of their water more than 4 billion years ago. Genesis, the first book of the Bible, represents the ocean as being older than the dry land. It's stated that God created heaven and earth, and the earth is initially portrayed as a dark and formless water. Oil spills decimate animal and plant population and devastate ecosystems. The biggest ocean oil spill in history happened in 1991 during the Gulf War. Iraqi soldiers retreating from Kuwait opened oil wells and pipelines in an attempt to slow US troops. 240 million gallons of oil spilled into the Persian Gulf, creating a sleek roughly the size of Hawaii. We know more things about the surface of the moon than we know about the depths of our oceans. The names Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian aren't in use since forever. They were formally accepted worldwide in 1845. The words ocean and sea can be used to describe each other. Still, a sea is technically a smaller body of salt water that is part of a larger ocean or is entrapped inland, with access to the ocean. All life on Earth began in the ocean. The effects of human pollution and overfishing have dramatically changed the world's oceans over past 100 years. The long-term effects of waste dumping and commercial fishing remain to be seen. In his work, Meteorology, the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle discusses and refutes several popular theories about the ocean, such as the belief that someday the oceans will dry up, or that the seas are a type of sweat coming from the earth when it overheats because of the sun. Like the rest of the Greek pantheon, Poseidon was a fickle god, sometimes sending storms and drowning sailors for little discernible reason. Whaling, or the hunting of the ocean's whale, has a long history. Norwegians hunted whales as nearly as 2000 BC, and the practice has deep historical roots among the Japanese and Inuit people as well. Whaling reached its peak in the 1800s when whale oil was heavily used as a power source. The industry declined with the rise of fossil fuels. Concern over diminishing whale population led many countries to heavily regulate or outlaw the practice in the mid-20th century. Unfortunately, some of those countries are opening the doors for whaling to increase in our days. The Ansegla was the name of a gigantic water snake in the folklore of the Native American Lakota tribe. This monster flooded the land with salt water so that nothing could grow before being killed by a pair of brave twins. Lightning hits dry land more often than the ocean, but when it does hit the ocean, the seawater can act as a conductor, electrocuting marine life near the surface. Many science fiction writers wrote stories about human settlement of Venus, believing it to be covered with oceans and capable of sustaining life. When it was discovered in 1968 that there were no oceans on our sister planet, sci-fi author Brian Aldiss released a compilation of stories entitled Farewell Fantastic Venus. The tuna fishing industry harms many creatures beside the fish. It's estimated that for every 1,000 tuna nets used, approximately 664 billfish, 102 sea turtles, 14,000 sharks, and 2 dolphins are killed. Shrimp fishing boats or trawlers keep and dump 2 to 4 times more shrimp than they catch and keep. Perhaps the most famous European sea monster, the Kraken, is a favorite pirate myth. The giant squid-like creature was said to live off the Norwegian coast. Human beings have been to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest point in the world's ocean, only twice. In 1960, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh descended in the naval Bathyscaphe Trieste. In 2012, James Cameron, the movie director, made a dive solo in his vertical torpedo sub 11,034 meters down. The atmospheric pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trenches is roughly 1,000 times what it's on the surface. The deepest part of the ocean is over 36,000 feet deep. If you were to drop there, the Mount Everest, its peak would still be over a mile underwater. It takes special training to read a sailing map. Sailors use unique maps of the ocean called nautical charts. These charts provide specific information about the ocean depth, anchorages, coastline shape, and configuration. Unusually high tides are known as king tides. To date, human beings have only explored 5% of Earth's oceans, and the Bermuda Triangle is one of the most discussed and studied 5% of the ocean. It's an infamous area of the Atlantic between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Though many ships and planes have been lost in this particular section of the sea, there is really no evidence that accidents are more frequent here than in other heavily trafficked areas of the seas. Given how little we know about the ocean, we may still see some monsters. Every now and then people discover giant, unknown corpses on shore. While these are sometimes fearfully called sea monsters, they are often dead basking sharks, which decay quickly, leaving an eerie skeleton. Legend holds that deep sea fish will explode when brought to surface, but this is false. Most deep sea fish have no swim bladder, so they are unaffected by such changes in pressure. Moby Dick, the famous white whale from Herman Melville's classic novel, isn't so far-fetched. Albino killer whales have been sighted, and it's possible that the sea might hold a giant white sperm whale, just like Ahab's nemesis. Edward Teach was an English pirate, better known as Blackbeard. This fearsome dog of the deep terrified his foes by lacing smoky fuses into his beard and wearing multiple daggers and pistols on his chest. Human interaction with the ocean often upsets natural ecosystems. For instance, foreign aquatic plants or animals have been introduced into waters that cannot sustain them or that suffer from their presence. On his voyage to the New World, Christopher Columbus reported seeing a great ball of fire sinking into the area now known as the Bermuda Triangle. Many speculate that what he saw was just a meteorite. People love the beach. In California alone, ocean-seeking tourists spend $75 billion per year. People in some parts of the world survive almost entirely on beach tourism revenue. The Gulf Stream is a series of currents converging in the sea which can propel animals and boats along at a speed more rapid than that of the Mississippi or Amazon rivers. There's a lot of gold in the ocean, both dissolved in the water and on the seafloor. Unfortunately, there's no economically feasible way of mining it. If we could, there'd be enough for each person on Earth to have 9 pounds of pure gold. Both the ocean and sky appear blue because blue is a short wavelength of light and thus scatters through mediums like air and water more easily than other colors in the spectrum. That's why when the sun sets or rises, light traveling through more air appears yellow, orange, dark orange. The Greek god of the sea, Poseidon, became Neptune in the Roman tradition. This aquatic overlord wielded a trident and summoned storms to punish or warn human beings. And from Rome, we have a little tradition that holds until today. The oceans are not subject to private or national dominion or ownership. This Roman doctrine of Mare Liberum, freedom of the seas, holds that the seas belong to all, and this has given rise to the 4 freedoms of the sea: freedom of navigation, fishing, laying of cables and pipelines, and overflight. And that's all for today. I hope that you like the ocean. Tell me your stories around surviving a wave or more pesky dive. What's your favorite ocean? Where have you traveled? What's the best route you have ever navigated? And that's all. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.